Today we are going to be talking about this book. It's called Hashtag Girl Boss. Now, based off the color of this book and the name of the book, you can kind of be asking or wondering, why would you read something like this? Well, I have an open mind and I try and test out different things. And this book was recommended to me numerous times on the internet through different sources on different lists. And with this book, I think it's very interesting because it is a business entrepreneur. It's not a get rich quick scheme book. It doesn't tell you how to get rich quick, but there's a lot of life lessons in this book, and her story will inspire you, and it's so relevant to where you are today. I mean, there's so many elements of the digital age in this book. It's quite exciting. From where she came from to where she got, amazing story. So again, it's not something that will guarantee you to get somewhere, but this girl, I mean, from where she came to where she got, and again, she's now running $1 million business in fashion. It is just very inspiring, and I recommend it to anyone. Obviously, girls will like it. I mean, I see a lot of girls reading books with covers and titles like this, so I'm sure you'll take to it like a what's that phrase called? A cow to water, something like that. And obviously, you know, it just reminds me of that book by Amy Poehler, just the cover alone. But this book, I think, is very enticing. Now, I haven't read the whole thing, but I've gotten pretty into it already, and I'm only about 30 pages in. But I want to just share with you a quick timeline. And this is a very quick timeline, and it just illustrates where she came from to where she went. It's at the intro of her book, and it's quite interesting. I'm going to just skip to the best points of this. So 2001, she moves out of her house. She's already homeschooled. She's diagnosed with depression and ADD. She tries a lot of different pills, diagnosed and prescribed to her, and she ends up not using any medication, getting homeschooled, and then moving out of her house because her parents got divorced. And now she's living with a bunch of musicians. She lives in a closet under the stairs. She pays rent, $60 a month. And then we move to 2002. She's hitchhiking up and down the West Coast, dumpster diving to feed herself, and resorting to petty thievery. 2002, this wasn't that long ago actually. She sells her first thing online, and that thing is a book that she stole. 2003, she's detained for shoplifting. 2005, again, this was not long ago. 2005, her boyfriend leaves her, and she moves to San Francisco, where she gets fired from a high-end shoe store. 2006, again, you know, she gets a hernia, and she realizes she needs to get health insurance to fix this. So she finally gets a job checking IDs at the lobby of an art school. And it's one of those easy jobs, so she has a lot of time to spend on the internet. So she stumbles across eBay through MySpace and sets up her own little shop where she sells vintage clothes. 2014, which is approximately almost 8 years later. She's now the CEO of a $100 million plus business with a 50,000 square foot office in Los Angeles, a distribution and fulfillment center in Kentucky, and 350 employees. Wow. So obviously, she intentionally left out a bunch of things in that timeline to get you to read that book. That was her intention. That was what she pretty much says in the intro. I went from that to where I am now. And I wouldn't have expected I would go there. I didn't know I could go there, but I learned a lot on my journey, and I want to teach you some of it. And a lot happened in those 8 years, and I want to tell you about it. Again, this is not a memoir. This is not a get-rich-quick book. This is a book about some of the things that I think may be helpful to you, and I want to impart it to you. And she also goes further on in saying that this is not a feminist manifesto, and she is not a, blatant feminist. She is simply someone who, cares for equality, but is not someone who's extravagantly feminist. So I think this is really a, multi-gender book. It is not designed simply for females. So, you know, I wouldn't care anyways, but if anyone sees me walking around with this book, I'm not going to care. Again, obviously, this is very relevant and interesting for the digital generation, as well as for females out there who are looking to pave their way. And even if you're not trying to be a business person or entrepreneur, there may be some things you can pick up along this journey, because, I mean, it's just an inspiring story of hope. And it just goes to show you that at her age, she was apparently 23 years old when she was pretty much checking IDs in the lobby and just barely getting by. A lot of people think that it's over if they graduate college, and they think that, you know, they're screwed because they can't hold down a job or whatever. This is a story of a girl who at 23 years of age was still screwing around. And there's plenty of stories like that, but I do think most students, they don't get exposed to this stuff. It's just not promoted enough, not marketed enough. They're not aware of it, and therefore they don't get that inspiration that's out there. One thing I really like about this book is how engrossed in the digital age it is. And what I mean by this is that, I mean, her whole journey is very much influenced by some of the big things in digital media while she was growing up, during her time. And these things included MySpace. So this was like the go-to thing at the time. And long story short, MySpace led her to eBay. How a lot of guys were friend requesting her, you know, big surprise. And apparently they were trying to pitch her and get her to buy stuff from these vintage clothing shops. From what I picked up from the book, vintage clothing basically means like clothing a decade or 2 decades old in fashion style. And so she found out about eBay through MySpace. As we all know, MySpace is just out of there now. But again, a similar thing can still happen with Facebook. The point is, a lot of new technology is influencing her, and it has allowed her to create a new digital business in this new age. So, long story short, I know I'm going on and on. I'm trying to keep this short. Long story short, she gets on eBay. She's like, what's this weird thing? Tries it out. And then she's selling one product at a time. Over, a long period of time, long story short, she grew that out. And essentially what she did was she went to all sorts of places, including Craigslist, to find vintage clothing. And she would flip it. She would make it better. She would clean it up. Oftentimes it came from thrift stores or something else, Goodwills, and she would sell it on eBay. And she got really good at it, to the point where she was almost growing and learning from it. And anything that didn't sell, she would drop. Anything that did, she would double down on. And apparently she got to a point where she found 2 jackets at a thrift store for $8 a piece. And then she sold them for something like $15,000 on eBay. That just makes no sense. That's just insane how she was able to do that. But she got her friends to model the clothing, and she hustled her butt off. She literally had this rented room, and the whole place was filled to the ceiling with all sorts of clothing, because she would hustle and get this clothing. If she heard that a house was closing down because the people died, she checked to see how old they were. And if they were old enough, they probably had vintage clothing. And so she went there and bought them at a discount. And then she would haggle, even though she was getting them dirt cheap, she would haggle to get them even cheaper. Every cent counted for her. And that was her life. That was her life as a business. Like, her life was the business. She didn't do anything else. That was her, life and lot. All her free time was devoted to that. So again, there's lessons in hard work. And it also just goes to show you that, even though she was fully engrossed in just this, she was happy. She didn't necessarily need all the stuff like going out, yachts, planes. She was loving the process. Amazing story. So again, I haven't even broken into this book. This is about how far I got into this book, about 30 pages in. And this is how much left there is. This is how much I've read. And it's just an interesting story. And what makes it even more interesting is because I personally have a lot of reference experience from all these other sources from books I've read, like Peter Thiel's 0 to 1, he founded PayPal, and that had a direct relationship with eBay. And it was really through eBay that PayPal got to the success it got to. And it really propelled Peter Thiel to become a billionaire. And, you know, there's that whole relationship of how PayPal helped eBay a lot and eBay helped PayPal a lot. And that really just grew up. And it's really interesting just seeing like the different dynamics of people coming into play, butting heads with each other, and creating these new businesses. I mean, Alibaba is doing that right now in China. And just based off what I'm seeing in the United States and other European and Western countries on the internet, I am still so excited for the rest of the world, because there's still so much potential on the internet that's already made clear in Western countries, that Asian countries and other developing countries will eventually, in time, whether it's 50 years out or 100 or 10 years out, they will get to, and it will lead to a lot of wealthy people, a lot of people who have enormous potential as entrepreneurs or whatever else, internet personalities, and they're just waiting to hatch. Even some professional gamers. Anyhow, I mean, there's a bunch of other things. Craigslist. I was just reading this book, Getting There. It's right behind me, actually. It's the orange one right here. And Getting There, one of the people it profiles is Craigslist founder. His name is Daniel Craig, I believe. And I'm sorry, his name's not Daniel Craig. I don't want to butcher it. His name it has Craig in it. That's how the thing got started. Craig Newmark. And long story short, his whole idea with Craigslist came about almost through just a fun experiment. He had a little list of emails, and he was just like sending things out, small events, to his friends. That blossomed into something big, and he started coding his website, and now Craigslist is just huge. It's just so interesting how that comes about, and now it just makes sense why it's called Craigslist. And you know, this woman, she used Craigslist a lot. She used Craigslist to find a lot of the thrift and vintage clothing through, you know, houses closing down, funerals, theater companies closing down. She found all this dirt cheap vintage clothing through Craigslist. Not completely through Craigslist, but that was a huge part. And it's just very interesting seeing all these different aspects interact with each other. I mean, nowadays when I'm walking around Costco or something, I've started to realize that all of these brands and companies have their own story. So anyhow, long story short, this man Craig, I mean, he started Craigslist when he was like 38. So it's just another showing of how it's not too late if you think it's too late. Like, if you're 30 years old, that doesn't mean your life's over. That doesn't mean you can't create something big. This man, Craig Newmark, I believe. I'm trying to find him in here. That's what he did. Yeah, Craig Newmark. So I just think that's very fascinating. And again, if you're young, better to start early. The founder of Reddit.com, he was pretty young, and now he's moved on to Hipmunk.com, which is doing well in and of itself. So again, I've gone off track. It's a great book. Check it out yourself. I really hope to finish this book. It seems very interesting, and I'll leave a link in the description if you want to pick that up on Amazon.com. I found this thing where you can get two free audiobooks of your choice, and obviously they have books like #GirlBoss, all the relevant, modern, current books. And hopefully the link still works. I'll leave it in the description below. But you can get 2 free audiobooks of your choice, and it's through it's through Amazon's audiobook provider, Audible.com. So if I can remember, which I might forget, I will leave a link to that in the description below. And if you guys remind me in the comments by the time I post this, and if I have the time, and if you guys want me to, I will do a review when I finish reading that book, or a summary, or whatever else you want. And let me know if you want a video summary or video review or text review on my blog, or both. And that's all I gotta say. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in my next video, hopefully. Peace. Hey everyone, so today I'm doing a first look video. What is that? Well, I can't do a book review because I haven't read this book yet. So I'm doing a first look video, which pretty much means I've read a few pages, I've skimmed through it, I've looked at some of the pictures,